We spend so much of our lives pushing, pulling, striving, trying to make things happen, as though the whole universe were a stubborn door that refuses to open unless we lean our entire weight against it. And yet, have you noticed? Most doors open inward. If you push too hard, you only jam them tighter. We are taught, almost from the moment we can walk, that life is a kind of contest, that you must exert yourself, apply effort, drive your will into the world. And so, we grow up clenching our minds, tightening our muscles, worrying ourselves into motion. We push our way through time. We force ourselves to succeed, to understand, to love, to be spiritual, even to relax. We make relaxation into another form of strain. But life, you see, doesn't work that way. Life isn't a machine to be forced. It's more like a melody, and you can't rush a melody without spoiling its song. Now, I don't mean you should sit about and do nothing. I don't mean you should let life slide by in laziness. But there's a very subtle art to letting things happen, to doing without forcing. The Taoists of China had a lovely word for it: Wu Wei, effortless action, action without strain. It sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? Action without doing. But the meaning is quite simple once you feel it. It means moving in accord with the rhythm of things, like a surfer who rides the wave instead of trying to push it. He doesn't create the wave, he doesn't command it, he simply aligns himself with it. And so he moves effortlessly, beautifully, because he trusts its power. You see, the moment you begin to force life, you separate yourself from it. You create this division between me and what I want. And that tension makes everything harder. It's like trying to swim while holding your breath. You can't possibly float that way. Stop for a moment. Notice your own body. Right now, there's breathing happening, without any effort from you. Your heart is beating, your blood moving, your thoughts rising and falling like waves on the sea. And you who think you are in control had nothing to do with any of it. You can't will your heart to beat faster for very long. You can't consciously digest your breakfast. Life does all of this for you, automatically. It lives you, in a sense, and if you try to interfere too much, you only disturb the natural flow. So, when I say don't force anything, I'm inviting you to trust this flow, to let life live itself through you, without so much interference from the little anxious voice that says, I must make it happen. Imagine a flower trying to bloom by effort. It would strain, tighten, shiver in the sunlight, and yet its petals would never open that way. The flower doesn't say, I must become beautiful. It simply grows, because growing is its nature. And so with you, you are not apart from the universe. You are the universe, expressing itself as this person, in this moment. When you fight the flow of life, you're like a wave trying to resist the ocean. But when you surrender, then the energy of the whole sea carries you. Now, that word surrender, it frightens people. They think it means giving up, but it doesn't mean that at all. It means giving in to what is real, to what's already happening. Let's take an example. Imagine you're trying to remember a name. You know it's there, on the tip of your tongue, but the more you try to drag it out, the further it slips away. You frown, you strain, you say, it's right there, I almost have it, and it doesn't come. But then, later, when you're washing the dishes, or walking outside, or doing something completely unrelated, suddenly the name pops right into your head. Why? Because you stopped forcing. You gave your mind a little room to breathe. And in that space, the answer came all by itself. That's how the whole of life works. The harder you clutch it, the less it responds. The tighter you try to hold water, the more it escapes through your fingers. And so, the art of living is not the art of controlling, but of allowing. To allow is not weakness, it's wisdom. There's a rhythm to things, a kind of breathing of the world. Expansion and contraction, growth and decay, rising and falling. Everything follows this movement. If you try to interrupt it, if you try to always be up, always expanding, always winning, you break the balance and the whole thing becomes painful. But if you can trust that the low tide will always return to high, that every night carries the dawn within it, then you begin to move differently. You stop fighting and you begin to dance. You see, Not forcing doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become responsive, like a tree bending in the wind, rather than snapping beneath it. The tree doesn't resent the wind. It flows with it, and that's what makes it strong. Now, imagine for a moment that life is like music. You wouldn't sit through a symphony just to hear the last note, would you? You'd let yourself be carried by the sound, moment by moment. You wouldn't say to the orchestra, "Hurry up, get to the end," because the beauty lies in the unfolding. And yet, that's how most of us live, always trying to reach the conclusion, the answer, the success, always forcing the tempo. But the meaning of life, you see, isn't in the conclusion, it's in the playing. When you stop forcing, you begin to hear the music that was always there, the music of now. Stop and listen. You may hear the sound of your own breathing, the hum of the room, the quiet pulse of the world beneath it all. That's life, effortlessly being itself. It doesn't need your command. It doesn't need your push. When you force something, you imply that life is not enough as it is. That this moment must be different before it can be complete. But this moment right now is perfect in its unfolding, even in its imperfection, because what we call imperfection is just life still in motion. It hasn't finished its dance yet. Don't rush the dance. Don't force the rhythm. Think of a caterpillar forcing its way out of a cocoon before its wings are ready. It may tear itself apart trying to escape the process that is meant to strengthen it. The struggle of emergence is part of the becoming. But the timing, the when, is not the caterpillar's to decide. When you force yourself to bloom before your time, you suffer. When you resist blooming, when your time has come, you suffer again. So, don't force, don't resist, just trust the unfolding. It's quite funny, really. We go through life thinking we are the doer, when in truth, we are being done. You don't beat your heart, it beats you. You don't think thoughts, thoughts think themselves. You don't even breathe, breathing breathes you. And the more you realize this, the more you begin to laugh, because you see the cosmic joke of it all. You were never in control, and you never needed to be. You can work hard, yes, you can move, create, explore, but when you do it because it's delightful, not because you must. Work becomes play when it's no longer forced. Even discipline can be gentle when it's born from love rather than fear. A musician practices not because he's anxious to be perfect, but because he loves the sound. A gardener tends the soil not to command it, but to be part of its miracle. This is the kind of action that flows effortless, joyful, real. Stop for a moment and consider, what happens in your life when you stop trying to make everything happen? What space opens when you let go of the steering wheel for just a breath? You find that things keep happening anyway, and often more beautifully than you could have planned. That's because forcing narrows the field of life. It blinds you to possibility. But when you release control, life reveals paths you didn't even know were there. You see, when a river meets a rock, it doesn't fight it, it flows around it. It still reaches the sea, just by another route. So when life seems to block your way, perhaps it isn't an obstacle at all, but a nudge, a redirection. If you force your way through the rock, you'll only hurt yourself. But if you let go, you find another way, one that's already waiting for you. It's not laziness, it's intelligence, the intelligence of water, the wisdom of yielding. And isn't that what peace really is? Not the absence of motion, but the absence of resistance. So, what happens when you truly stop forcing? Something remarkable. You begin to notice that life has its own intelligence, an intelligence far greater than the anxious plans of the mind. It's the same intelligence that turns an acorn into an oak, that guides the stars in their orbits, that shapes the tides and the winds. And that same intelligence is moving through you, this very moment. It doesn't need your attention to operate. It only asks for your cooperation. When you stop forcing, you don't lose direction, you gain alignment. You no longer act against the current, you move with it. And in that movement, your actions gain a quiet power. They stop being the jerky motions of fear and become the graceful gestures of trust. You see, the paradox is this: the less you try to control life, the more you find yourself in harmony with it. The more you relax into uncertainty, the more certain you feel, because you've discovered that you don't need to know what's next to be alive right now. Life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. And mysteries reveal themselves only when you stop demanding answers. They bloom in silence, like night blooming flowers that open only when you stop shining your flashlight at them. Stop. Listen. Can you feel that quiet movement beneath thought? That gentle hum of being? That's you before you began trying to be someone. That's the effortless self, the one that doesn't need to prove or perform, the one that doesn't rush to fix or to force. It's been here all along, waiting patiently for you to stop struggling. We live in a world that glorifies effort, doesn't it? We are told that success belongs to those who grind the hardest, that peace comes from conquering the mind, that love must be earned, enlightenment achieved. But all of that is just more forcing, dressed in spiritual clothing. Real peace, real freedom, arises when you let go of the idea that you must attain them. Because the moment you chase peace, it runs. The moment you try to force stillness, the mind trembles. But when you stop chasing, when you simply notice what is, peace reveals itself. As quietly as dawn spilling through an open window. You can't make the sun rise by shouting at it. You can only watch in stillness, as it does inevitably, perfectly, on its own time. And that's how everything unfolds. Love, growth, clarity, purpose, they arise when the soil of your being is soft, when you're not pressing so hard for them to grow. Imagine you're trying to catch a soap bubble. If you snatch at it, it bursts. But if you open your hand gently, it may land right there, glimmering for a moment before floating away. That's how joy works, how love works, how truth works. You can only hold them by not holding at all. Now, many people fear that if they stop forcing, nothing will happen, that without pressure, they'll lose all direction, become lazy or indifferent. But this is misunderstanding the nature of life. You see, the universe abhors stillness only when it's dead, and you are not dead. You're brimming with life. There's a deep spontaneity in you that wants to move, to create, to dance. When you stop forcing, you don't fall into inertia, you fall into rhythm. That rhythm may be slow at times, fast at others, but it's never forced. It's alive. It's like jazz. The beauty of improvisation comes not from controlling every note, but from listening deeply to what wants to happen next. You are part of that great improvisation, the music of existence playing itself through you. And when you try to force the music, you create dissonance. But when you listen, truly listen, you find that the next note comes naturally. The melody unfolds of its own accord. Have you ever noticed that the most beautiful things in life tend to happen when you least expect them? A sudden laugh that lightens your day, a stranger's kindness, a moment of insight that just appears out of nowhere. These things can't be forced. They come as gifts. They come when you stop trying so hard to deserve them. Forcing is the language of fear. Allowing is the language of trust. And trust, real trust, is the essence of peace. Now, I don't mean blind trust, not the kind that ignores reality. I mean a deep trust that even the difficult moments are part of the unfolding. That even confusion, pain, and loss have their own rhythm, their own hidden intelligence. The seed doesn't curse the darkness of the soil. It trusts that the dark is where it must begin. So when life seems heavy, unclear, or still don't force your way out of it, don't demand that spring arrive before winter is done teaching. Because forcing growth before its season only weakens the roots. When the time is right, you'll feel the movement again. You'll feel it the way a bird feels, the change in wind, not by thinking, but by sensing. That's how life guides you when you stop forcing. Not through plans, but through feeling. Listen, right now, there is nothing missing. The universe, in its infinite play, has brought you here, to this moment, breathing, listening, alive. You didn't force your way into existence, did you? You simply appeared. And that miracle continues every second, effortlessly. All forcing is rooted in forgetfulness, forgetting that you are already part of the great design. The mind, when afraid, forgets its belonging and begins to shout commands at the ocean. But the ocean doesn't need to be told what to do. It's already dancing. Sometimes, to remember that truth, you must be still. Not still as in rigid, still as in receptive. Still as a mirror that reflects everything without holding anything. And in that stillness, you realize that nothing ever needed to be forced, because everything has been unfolding perfectly, even the moments that seemed imperfect. The rain that ruins the picnic also feeds the earth. The delay that frustrates you may save your life. The failure that breaks your heart may open it wide enough for real love to enter. There's a hidden grace in what you didn't plan, but you can't see it while you're forcing. You can only see it when you let go. Stop. Breathe. Look around. Everything is happening all by itself. The world turns. The air moves. The body breathes. And you are simply here. The miracle was never about making things happen. It was about noticing that they already are. When you stop forcing, you stop dividing yourself into the doer and the done. You become the happening itself. Life moves, and you move with it. Thought rises, feeling comes, sound, silence, laughter, tears, all of it dances through you like wind through the trees. And the funny thing is, when you live this way, not forcing, but allowing, you actually become more effective, not less. Because your actions come from clarity, not compulsion. They arise naturally, like ripples from a pebble dropped in still water. You see, doing flows best from being, just as words flow best from silence. When you know how to be still, truly still, then everything you do has depth. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. And response is always wiser than reaction. So don't be in such a hurry to fix, to solve, to change. Let life show you what it wants to do next. The universe doesn't rush, and yet everything is accomplished. Even stars are patient. Now, I'll tell you something. You don't have to make your life meaningful. You only have to stop resisting its meaning. It's already here, in the laughter you didn't plan, in the tears you didn't hide, in the ordinary quiet moments between one thought and another. You are the meaning, not the project, not the goal, not the plan. You, this alive,
is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. Yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. Have you ever noticed that suffering is not so much in the pain itself, but in the way we cling to it, resist it, and try to escape from it? It's curious, isn't it? The moment you resist a thing, you magnify it. The moment you push against a thought, you give it strength. And so much of what we call suffering isn't in the rain that falls upon us, but in the way we curse the storm. Now, I'm not suggesting that life is free of difficulty. Far from it. Life has always been a dance of opposites. Pain and pleasure, gain and loss, birth and death, they are as inseparable as the front and the back of a coin. But here is the trick. You see, suffering is not the same as pain. Pain is simply what is. The sting of loss, the ache of the body, the tears of parting, these are natural as the tides. But suffering is the story we weave around it. It is the why me. It is the clinging, the holding on, the desperate attempt to control what was never in our control. There is an old saying in Zen, let go or be dragged. And this is precisely the matter at hand. When you stop clutching, when you let the river flow, you find that the water carries you. But when you stiffen, when you insist on paddling against the current, you exhaust yourself. And then, of course, you call that exhaustion suffering. Now imagine this for a moment. Suppose you are sitting in a concert hall, listening to the most marvelous symphony. The violins rise, the horns call, the drums thunder, and then there are those soft silences between notes. If you tried to cling to one particular note, one particular moment, you would miss the music entirely. And yet that is what so many of us do with life. We clutch to the past, we resist the present, and we demand that the future turn out just so. And in this struggle, we suffer. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Isn't that delightful? You stir up the pond, and then you panic, wondering why you cannot see. But if you would only stop meddling, if you would let the water settle on its own, it becomes clear again. This is the essence of ending suffering. To stop trying to force clarity, to stop grasping for control, to let life be. And yet, here comes the paradox. The very moment you try to let go, you will find yourself grasping at letting go. You will say, I must stop suffering, I must drop it, I must let it go. And suddenly, suffering is right back in the room, laughing at you. So, what do? You don't do. You notice, you watch. You become aware of this game you are playing. And in that very awareness, a kind of miracle happens. The grasping begins to loosen on its own. This is why I often say, man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. Life is a game, a play, a cosmic hide and seek. You are it, pretending not to be it. You are the universe playing at being a person. And the moment you recognize that this whole drama isn't meant to be taken with such deadly seriousness, you begin to laugh at your suffering. And what happens when you laugh? You loosen, you breathe, you live. Think of a child. A child falls, scrapes its knee, and within moments they are up again, laughing, running. The pain is there, yes, but it has not yet solidified into suffering. Why? Because the child has not learned to weave long stories about it. They haven't yet learned to cling. But we as adults become very good at storytelling. We carry our wounds like treasures, retelling them, protecting them, building identities around them. And in this endless narration, we suffer far more than the original wound ever required. So let me tell you a story. One you may have heard before, but it bears repeating. There was once a Chinese farmer. One day, his horse ran away, and the neighbors came and said, "Oh, that's too bad." And the farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned, bringing with it 7 wild horses, and the neighbors came again and said, "Why, how wonderful!" And the farmer said, "Maybe." The day after, his son tried to ride one of the wild horses, and he was thrown off, breaking his leg. The neighbors rushed in, "Oh, that's terrible." And again the farmer said, "Maybe." The very next day, conscription officers came, looking for young men to draft into the army. But because the son had a broken leg, they passed him by. And the neighbors cried, "How fortunate!" And the farmer, as always, replied, "Maybe." Now, the point of this story is not about being clever or detached. It's about seeing that life is endlessly unfolding, and our judgments of good and bad, fortunate and unfortunate, are terribly short-sighted. When you see this, you begin to loosen your grip on things. You stop suffering over each twist of the plot, because you realize you are not meant to judge the story, you are meant to experience it. Man is a little bit afraid. He wonders what will happen next. But that is precisely the adventure. The attempt to escape suffering is often the very root of it. You fear the unknown, you fear loss, you fear death. But all of these are part of the adventure. The trick, you see, is not to get rid of the storm, but to learn to dance in the rain, not to abolish the silence, but to hear the music within it, not to conquer death, but to realize that death is what makes life so exquisitely alive. And so, if you wish to stop suffering now, don't begin with the attempt to rearrange life. Begin with the way you see it. Look at the river, look at the sky, look at your own thoughts, rising and falling like clouds, and see they were never under your control anyway. When you allow them to flow, you discover a strange thing. Suffering evaporates, and in its place there is a kind of deep, wordless peace. It is not the peace of having solved everything, but the peace of no longer needing to. The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. Suffering comes from our desperate attempt to make the impermanent permanent. We want the joy without the loss, the life without the death, the gain without the risk. But this is to want a one-sided coin, and a one-sided coin does not exist. When you see this, when you truly see it, you stop fighting the rhythm of life, and in that moment suffering dissolves. So perhaps the invitation is not to escape suffering, but to see through it, to recognize it as a trick of the mind, a tightening where loosening is possible. And in this recognition, right here, right now, you are free. So we have this feeling of being a lonely little me, inside a bag of skin, looking out at a world that is foreign and often threatening. We feel that we came into this world. But did you? Or did you come out of it? Like an apple comes out of an apple tree. Have you noticed this peculiar illusion we carry? The sense that we are strangers in the universe, accidental visitors, isolated egos inside these fragile shells of flesh. We imagine ourselves tossed into a world that does not belong to us, that is indifferent or hostile. And because of this illusion, we feel lonely. We feel afraid. We feel the weight of being a separate self, adrift in a vast, uncaring cosmos. But pause for a moment. Ask yourself honestly, did you really come into this world? Or did you come out of it? Just as a leaf comes out of a branch, just as the wave rises out of the sea, the universe has been unfolding for billions of years. And here you are, a blossoming, an expression, a ripple in its eternal dance. You are not a visitor. You are the happening itself. Consider the wave. A wave curls upon the ocean surface. It rises, takes form, gathers strength, and if it could think, it might say, look at me, I am a wave, I am important, separate, special. But the wave also fears. It sees its own end approaching as it tumbles toward the shore. It trembles at the crash, thinking it will vanish forever, and so it suffers. But what the wave forgets, what we forget, is that it is never separate from the ocean. Its water is the ocean's water. Its motion is the ocean's motion. The crash upon the shore is not the end of the wave, but a transformation. It returns to the sea, just as it always was the sea. You are that wave. You may call yourself by a name, John or Jane, but your true identity is oceanic. You are the universe itself, playing at being a temporary ripple. And when you see this, fear dissolves. Loneliness fades, because you realize you cannot fall out of the ocean. You cannot be lost. You are the ocean, forever folding into new forms. Now let's deepen this. The universe is not merely ocean, but a great play of opposites. Light and dark, sound and silence, life and death. We live in a system of polarity. The crest of the wave cannot exist without the trough. The heartbeat itself, systole and diastole, contraction and expansion. If the heart stopped alternating, you would not be alive. Yet what do? We try to cling to one side and reject the other. We worship the light but curse the darkness. We chase pleasure but resist pain. We want to live but we fear death. And here is the trick. You cannot have one without the other. It's like trying to play a game of chess with only white pieces, or trying to listen to music with only sound and no silence. The opposites define one another. Without the background of night, the stars would not shine. Without silence, music would be meaningless. Without death, life would lose its urgency, its beauty. But suffering arises when we forget this is a game, when we treat one side as an enemy to be conquered, rather than a partner in the dance. The yin-yang symbol, you see, is not static. It's always turning, always flowing. The black contains the seed of white, and the white contains the seed of black. They chase one another like lovers, like dancers. The universe is not at war with itself. It is in love with itself. It is playing, it is dancing. And you are one of its graceful movements. Now let's take another metaphor. Imagine life as a grand theater. The curtain rises, the actors step onto the stage, and the play begins. To be a good actor, you must believe in your role. If you are playing the tragic hero, you must weep real tears. If you are playing the clown, you must laugh with all your heart. But the great actor never forgets. This is a role. The tears are real, yet they are also play. When the curtain falls, the actor steps off stage, removes the costume, and goes home. Now here is the human predicament. We have forgotten we are actors. We are stuck on the stage, utterly convinced the play is reality itself. We take our role as John or Mary with such seriousness, such gravity, that we suffer as if the play were eternal. But what happens when you remember, when you see that the role is temporary, that the curtain will fall? You do not stop acting. In fact, you act even better, because you can give yourself fully to the role, knowing it is not the whole of you. You are not just the actor, you are the audience, watching the play unfold. You are the playwright, weaving the story. You are the stage itself. upon which the drama appears. And when you realize this, the tragedy loses its sting, the comedy sparkles, and even the sorrows of life become part of the magnificent performance. But perhaps the deepest illusion of all is the sense of separation. This feeling of being a lonely little me, trapped in a bag of skin, peering out at a world that is other. Science will tell you quite correctly that your body is made of stardust, that the iron in your blood was forged in the heart of stars that exploded billions of years ago, that the breath you inhale right now was exhaled by trees, and the breath you exhale is food for them. You are not separate from the environment. You are the environment. You don't live in the universe. You are the universe, living as this particular form for a little while. The illusion of being separate is the root of fear, and thus the root of suffering. Because if you believe you are only this fragile ego, you must constantly defend it, protect it, cling to it, and of course it feels terrifying to lose it. But when you see through the illusion, when you realize you are the ocean, the wave, the actor, the stage, the whole cosmic drama, then death itself loses its teeth. Because how can the universe lose itself? It is only changing costume, only shifting masks, only moving from one dance to another. Let me share with you one final image. The Hindus say the universe is a game of hide and seek. God, or Brahman, hides from himself by becoming us, by becoming the world of forms, by pretending to be you and forgetting. Why? Because there is no fun in playing a game where you already know the ending. So the self hides from itself, takes on the disguise of you, and pretends to be lost. And the whole adventure of life is the thrill of seeking. But sooner or later, the game reaches its turning point. The mask slips, the curtain is lifted, and you remember, it was me all along. I was the seeker and the sought, the hider and the finder, the player and the game. And then you laugh, because you realize suffering was never more than forgetting the playful nature of it all. You are the aperture through which the universe is looking at itself and exploring itself. And when you know this, not as an idea, but as a lived reality, life transforms. The fear of death loosens. The grip of loneliness fades. The seriousness of suffering dissolves. Because you remember, you are not merely in the cosmos. You are the cosmos. And this whole drama, with its joys and sorrows, is your play. So how does one stop suffering now? The ego's first instinct is to find a method, a technique, a new thing to do, to try even harder to control the game. But that is like a person trapped in quicksand, struggling. It only sinks them deeper. The way is not to grasp, but to let go. We human beings are funny creatures. When faced with the challenge of suffering, our first thought is always, what should I do? We want a prescription, a technique, a map. We want some clever method that will finally fix it all. But do you see the trick here? The very one who is suffering, the grasping, anxious self, is the one trying to end suffering. It's like a dog chasing its own tail, or like a man in quicksand who thrashes and flails, only to sink deeper with every effort. The harder you try to be free, the more tightly you bind yourself. Because the very act of trying is rooted in resistance, and resistance is the seed of suffering. This is why control never quite works. You say to yourself, I must let go, I must relax, I must trust, and already you are clutching at relaxation, grasping at trust, forcing yourself to let go. It's absurd, isn't it? And yet, this is the human predicament. We try to control the uncontrollable. We try to clutch the river with our hands. And then we wonder why we come up empty. Letting go is not something you do. It is what happens when you see that there is nothing to hold on to. It's like opening your hand and realizing it was empty all along. It is that we are constantly labeling events as good or bad, fortunate or unfortunate, based on a tiny sliver of perspective. But the truth is, we do not know. We cannot know. The story is still unfolding. Our endless judgments, our compulsive labeling, they are the very roots of anxiety. We live in constant tension, afraid of what may come, desperate to hold on to what we call good, terrified of what we call bad. But if we could live like the farmer, with that soft smile of maybe, suffering would dissolve like morning mist. So then, what is the alternative? If not control, if not judgment, what is left? Attention. Pure, unfiltered, childlike attention. Instead of trying to change what is, try simply to look at it. Feel the anxiety in your chest. Don't call it bad. Don't try to fix it. Just feel it as it is. Listen to the sound of the rain on the roof. Don't call it pleasant. Don't call it unpleasant. Just listen. Look at the light filtering through the trees. Don't say, how beautiful. Don't say, how ordinary. Just look. And when you do this, something miraculous happens. The world, which had grown flat and grey, suddenly becomes alive again. Everything shimmers with mystery, as if seen for the first time. You become like a child, and for a child everything is gee whiz. The most ordinary pebble is a jewel. The most common insect is a dragon. The whole world is vibrant, alive, radiant. Now I must warn you to live this way feels like living without a net, because the ego desperately wants guarantees. It wants security, certainty, a safety rope to cling to. But life offers no such thing, and that, my friends, is its beauty. The tree does not ask for a guarantee of spring. It simply blossoms. The bird does not demand a contract with the sky. It simply spreads its wings and flies. Living without a net is to realize you don't actually have to let go, because there is nothing to hold on to. There never was. You see, all along, you have been like a man clutching at empty air, imagining it was a rope. And when you finally look, you laugh because there is nothing to release. You are already free. This is the wisdom of unknowing. We are so desperate to know, to pin down, to fix, to explain. But what if we could rest in the vastness of not knowing? What if we could meet each moment without the burden of labels, without the need for certainty? Then life would not be a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The river flows, and you flow with it. The wind blows, and you bend with it. The stars burn, and you burn with them. There is no plan to follow, no secret key to find. There is only this moment, this breath, this dance. And when you see this, you discover a peace deeper than answers. The peace of not needing to know, the peace of simply being. And here comes the final joke of it all. The very thing you have been searching for, freedom, peace, the end of suffering, was never hiding. It was here all along. It's like looking for your own head. You can twist and turn, peer into every mirror, ask every teacher, but you will never see it directly, because it is what you are looking from. In the same way, you are the very freedom you seek. You are the very peace you long for. You are it. Always, already here. And the moment you stop searching, the moment you stop touching, you see it like a joke that was waiting all along. And then perhaps you laugh. The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real deep down you is the whole universe. And when you realize this, that there is no rope to grasp, no net to fall into, no separate self to protect, you stop struggling, you stop suffering, and you live. Not tomorrow, not when you figured it all out, but now. Always now. So here we are, my friends, at the final turn of this little journey together. We began with a knot, the knot of suffering, the sense that you are a lonely little creature, cast adrift in a vast and hostile universe. And perhaps along the way you've noticed that knot beginning to loosen. Not by force, not by pulling at it, but simply by seeing it for what it is, an illusion. You see, all along, the suffering was not in life itself, but in the way we held on to it. The way we tried to freeze the dance into a still photograph. The way we insisted on being the permanent guest in an impermanent party. And life, of course, refuses. Life moves, it dances, it breathes. And so our suffering was the friction between our demand for solidity and the universe's endless fluidity. Now, let us tie the threads together. We began with separation, a skin-encapsulated ego, looking out through the eyes as if through tiny windows, fearing the world outside. We discovered that this little self, this lonely I, is no more than a mask, a role in a play. And behind the mask, why behind the mask is the entire theater, the stage, the lights, the script, the orchestra, the audience. All of it is you playing hide and seek with itself. And what a marvelous trick it is to hide from yourself so thoroughly that you can forget your true nature, only to rediscover it with a rush of laughter and tears. For what is enlightenment but a cosmic game of peekaboo? You hid, and now you see. And so, let me remind you of something very important. Life is not a journey with some grand prize at the end. It is a symphony. You don't play the symphony to get to the end of it. No one listens to Beethoven's Ninth and says, "Oh, I can't wait for the final note." That would be absurd. No, you listen for the play of notes, the rise and fall, the silence between the sounds. Life is precisely like that. It is a song. And you are invited to sing along, not to rush to the final chord. The meaning, you see, is not waiting at the finish line. The meaning is now, in the laughing child, in the sound of rain against the window, in the pulse of your own breath. The tragedy of human suffering is that we forget the music and try to turn it into a race. We strain to arrive, all the while missing the very thing we came for, the dancing of the notes. And this is why, you see, the masters, the sages, the poets, they laugh. They laugh not because they mock life, but because they finally got the joke. They realized that there was nothing to get. Now, think for a moment of a dancer. A dancer does not dance to arrive at a particular spot on the floor. If they did, the quickest way would be to walk directly there. No, the dancer dances because the movement itself is the delight. So too with the universe. It does not spin galaxies into being because it needs them to arrive somewhere. It spins because spinning is its joy. You are not here to accomplish some divine checklist. You are here because the cosmos could not resist the artistry of making a you. You are its pirouette, its laughter, its brushstroke of color. But remember this, the dance always includes its opposite. The spin requires the stillness. The music requires the silence. The wave requires the trough. So don't imagine that to live in harmony means to avoid sorrow, or to escape death, or to outrun the shadow. To live is to embrace the shadow as the partner of the light, to hold both hands in the dance. Suffering only arises when we insist on clinging to one hand and rejecting the other. Think once more of the wave. The wave rises, curls, and crashes, and all the while it trembles, saying, "I must not end. I must hold myself together." But the truth is, the wave never ends. Its water was the ocean all along. When it falls, it simply returns to itself. And you, dear listener, are precisely the same. You are not something apart from this grand ocean of being. You are the ocean waving. And when you fall, you do not end, you return. So breathe. And in that breath, realize it is not you breathing. It is the cosmos breathing through you. And so, perhaps you wonder, what am I to do now? And the marvelous answer is, nothing in particular. Or rather, everything. There is no prescribed action, no secret key, no final step. The great relief of awakening is that life no longer needs to be conquered. You don't need to force it into meaning. It is meaning already. Just as a flower does not bloom with an agenda, you do not need one either. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived. Try this. Tomorrow morning, as you step outside, don't name anything you see. Don't call it tree, don't call it bird, don't call it sky. Just look, just listen. Let the universe wash over you, without the filter of labels. You will find it is alive, shimmering miraculous, because you have stopped trying to make it fit into the tight little boxes of thought. So let me invite you now, the next time anxiety rises, see if you can notice it not as an enemy, but as a ripple in the dance. The next time sorrow comes, see if you can cradle it gently, like a violin note in the symphony. And the next time joy visits, welcome it, but don't cling to it. Let it pass too, for everything is part of the rhythm. Remember, you are not merely listening to the music, you are the music. Let us end, then, with this. You are a function of what the whole universe is doing. In the same way, a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing. You are not a puppet dangling on strings, nor a stranger lost in a foreign land. You are the land, the strings, the puppeteer, the play, the laughter, the tears. So when you suffer, remember, it is the universe stretching itself into form, into contrast, into dance. And when you let go, you realize that you were never separate at all. So go now, not with heavy commandments, but with curiosity. Look out the window. See the sky, the leaves, the people passing by. Hear the hum of life around you. Don't name it. Don't judge it. Just let it sing to you. For in the end, there is no end. Only the eternal music, the endless dance of energy. And in that knowing, suffering dissolves. Right here. Right now.
There are moments, sometimes quiet, sometimes aching, when one looks over the shoulder of time and wonders what it was all for. You wake up one day and realize that years have passed, and somehow the grand story you thought you were writing seems to have slipped through your fingers. Perhaps you did everything you were told you should do. You worked hard, you stayed busy, you followed the path that others laid before you. Yet still, there is this haunting whisper that asks, was this it? It can be a very strange and lonely feeling, this sense that you have wasted something as sacred as your own life. Because you see, we are all taught that life is something to be used, something to be directed toward a purpose, something that must amount to something in the end. And so we chase after the idea of meaning like a man chasing his own shadow. But the more you run after it, the further it seems to recede. This idea of waste only appears when we measure life by a story we believe it should have followed. You were supposed to be somewhere by now. You were supposed to have done something, become someone, proven something. And yet here you are, standing still, looking at the world and feeling as if everyone else is moving ahead while you are being quietly left behind. But the strange thing about that feeling is that it never quite tells the truth. Because what if what you call wasting your life is only your life refusing to be wasted on the wrong things? What if your stillness is not failure, but rest? What if the roads you didn't take were simply the ones that were never yours to walk? You see, we live in a world obsessed with progress. Everything around us is designed to convince you that you must constantly be moving towards something, producing something, improving something, achieving something. But in that endless striving, you forget how to be. You forget that the meaning of life is not found at the end of a path, but in the simple act of walking. The oak tree does not rush to grow. The clouds do not hurry across the sky to arrive at a destination. And yet, we are convinced that stillness means stagnation, that silence means absence, that not knowing means failure. The idea that you have wasted your life is built on a comparison. You look at what others have done, what they have achieved, where they are, and then you measure your own existence against their imagined success. But comparison is a trick of the mind. It turns life into a contest, when in truth it was never a race at all. You are not running toward meaning, you are meaning unfolding. Consider this. If a flower were to bloom at midnight, hidden from every eye, would it still be beautiful? Would its fragrance be any less sweet because no one saw it? The flower does not bloom to be seen. It blooms because blooming is its nature. In the same way, your life does not need to be seen, measured, or admired to be worthwhile. You exist because the universe willed it so. And that, by itself, is enough. The feeling that life has been wasted often arises when the story you told yourself about who you were supposed to become begins to fall apart. But every story must dissolve for truth to appear. There comes a moment when the masks grow heavy, when the ambitions no longer excite you, when the old dreams start to feel like clothes that no longer fit. And that moment, though it feels like despair, is actually the beginning of something miraculous. It is the unraveling of illusion. For so long you believed you were on your way to somewhere, but where exactly? You were never truly going anywhere because you were never truly separate from the place you longed to reach. You are already there. The journey was never about arriving. It was about realizing that you had been home all along. Many people come to this realization late in life, sometimes after decades of striving. They wake up one morning, see the lines on their face, the gray in their hair, and they think, what was it all for? They look at the possessions, the status, the roles they played, and none of it feels real anymore. And that can be a terrifying moment, but it can also be the first true breath of freedom you have ever taken. Because when you no longer believe you must become someone else to be worthy, you begin to live. Let me tell you a small story. There was once a monk who spent his entire life searching for enlightenment. He meditated for years, fasted, studied sacred texts, and traveled from teacher to teacher. Yet peace always seemed to elude him. One day, exhausted and old, he gave up. He sat beneath a tree and said to himself, "I have wasted my life." But as he sat there, a gentle breeze passed through the leaves, and he noticed the sound of the wind, the sunlight flickering through the branches, the simple stillness of the world. In that moment, he began to laugh, because he realized that all along he had been searching for something that had never been lost. The same is true for you. You cannot waste your life any more than you can waste the sky. You may delay awareness, but the totality of life remains untouched by your choices. Even the mistakes, even the regrets, are part of the great unfolding. Nothing is outside of it. Nothing is wasted. You see, your idea of waste depends on your idea of time. You imagine a line, a past behind you and a future ahead, and you judge where you stand along that line. But time is not a line. It is a dance. The past is not gone. It is alive in you now as memory, as experience, as the invisible current shaping this very moment. The future is not waiting. It is already being born through your thoughts, your breath, your presence. And this moment, this one right now, is eternity disguised as now. So when you say, "I have wasted my life," what you are really saying is, "I have not noticed that life has always been here," because it has. It never went anywhere. Regret is the mind's way of trying to rewrite a story that was never yours to control. It is an echo of resistance, a refusal to accept the perfection of imperfection. But the moment you stop arguing with your past, the moment you allow every mistake to simply be part of the fabric of what made you, a quiet peace begins to emerge. That peace is not indifference. It is understanding. Perhaps you feel you spent too long in the wrong job, or loved the wrong person, or chased dreams that dissolved into dust. But what if none of that was wrong? What if each step, each heartbreak, each detour was essential in leading you to this very awareness? Life, after all, is not a straight path. It spirals, it loops, it doubles back, it confuses you on purpose so that you may eventually see the futility of trying to control it. And once you see that, a beautiful thing happens. You stop trying to win life. You begin to live it. The great error of modern man is that he measures his worth in productivity. You are not a machine. You are a mystery. You are not meant to function efficiently. You are meant to experience deeply. You are meant to feel the full weight of being alive, the joy, the loss, the uncertainty, the beauty, the grief. Every part of it is sacred. If you could only step back and see your life not as a series of failures or missed opportunities, but as a single piece of art, a painting in progress, you would realize that even the dark strokes are necessary for the light to shine. The contrast is what gives the picture depth. Perhaps you cannot see it now, but someday you will. You will look back and see that nothing was wasted. Every wrong turn led you home. Every heartbreak opened your heart a little wider. Every delay prepared you for what could not be rushed. The truth is that life cannot be wasted, because life is not a possession. You cannot lose what you never owned. You can only forget that it was never yours to control. So, if you feel you have wasted your life, I invite you to look closer. Look at the way the light falls on your hands. Look at the breath moving through your chest. Look at the small, miraculous act of awareness that allows you to even ask this question. This moment, right here, is your life, and it is whole. When you truly see that, something within you softens. The tension of regret begins to dissolve, And in its place comes a deep, unshakable peace, not the peace of escape, but the peace of recognition. Because the truth is, you were never off track. There is no track. There is only this infinite unfolding, and you are part of it, now and forever. That is where healing begins. That is where the illusion of waste ends. When you begin to sense that perhaps nothing was wasted, the mind doesn't easily surrender its habit of measuring. It will try to find a new way to evaluate, a quieter scale upon which to weigh the worth of your days. It might whisper, "All right, perhaps I didn't waste my life, but surely I should be further along by now." You see, even when you stop running, the mind still wants a finish line. But there isn't one. The idea of a finish line is born from the illusion that life is a journey from ignorance to enlightenment, from brokenness to wholeness, from lostness to foundness. But there was never such a line to cross. You were never incomplete. You were never missing anything. What you call growth, what you call progress, is simply the unfolding recognition of what has always been true. Yet the human being as it is, craves story. It needs to feel that it is going somewhere. That need gives us hope in dark hours, but it also creates a subtle prison. For as long as you believe there is somewhere you must arrive, you cannot rest here. You are always just a little bit away from home. So much of our suffering comes not from the past itself, but from our attempts to rewrite it. We imagine the alternate lives we could have lived, the choices we should have made, the people we might have been if only the cards had fallen differently. But these imagined lives are ghosts. They shimmer just beyond the reach of what's real. And every time you compare your actual life to those ghosts, you dishonor the sacredness of what actually is. You were never meant to be the best version of yourself. You were meant to be the only version of yourself. The perfection you seek is not in some ideal self-image, it's in the depth of the one that already lives and breathes within you. The truth is that the feeling of having wasted your life is an invitation, not a condemnation. It is a quiet knocking from the soul, asking to be seen, asking you to stop chasing, to stop proving, to stop trying so hard to be something. The exhaustion that follows years of striving is not evidence of failure. It is the body and spirit calling you home. And coming home to yourself can feel strange at first, almost unsettling, because the person you built in your mind, the one who was supposed to be accomplished, admired, certain, and strong, begins to crumble. What remains is someone far simpler, softer, more real, someone who does not need to pretend. There is a tenderness in that breaking, like the moment you realize the wave has always been the ocean. The separation was only imagined. And with that realization comes a strange, liberating humility. You begin to see that even your mistakes were not really yours. They were movements of the universe through the particular form you call me. Now, imagine standing on the shore of your own life. Behind you, the waves of memory crash and dissolve. Before you, the horizon stretches endlessly. You could spend your whole life staring backward, watching the ripples of what has been, or you could simply turn and face the open sea. Both choices are available, neither is wrong. But one keeps you bound to what has passed. The other invites you into the mystery that has always been waiting. This moment right now is not the sum of your past, nor the promise of your future. It is life in its purest form, unadorned, unmeasured, and utterly free. The trouble is that we rarely allow it to be enough. We clutter the present with demands for meaning, for validation, for proof that it matters. But meaning, my friend, is not something you give to life. It is what life gives to you when you stop asking it to explain itself. Look at the simple act of breathing. You inhale, and without effort, the universe enters you. You exhale, and you give yourself back to it. That rhythm has been happening your entire life, unnoticed, uncelebrated, perfectly balanced. You do not ask each breath what purpose it serves. You simply breathe. And yet, each breath sustains the miracle of your being. That is how life works. Meaning emerges not from what you do to it, but from what you allow it to show you. When you loosen your grip on the idea that your life must justify itself, something beautiful happens. The ordinary begins to shimmer. You notice the way sunlight falls on your table, the sound of distant laughter, the quiet pulse of your own heartbeat. And you realize, perhaps for the first time, that this unremarkable, unplanned, unspectacular moment is the essence of living. The modern world, however, does not reward this awareness. It worships noise. It values ambition over stillness, productivity over presence, attention over understanding. You are constantly being pulled away from yourself, told that you should be somewhere else, doing something else, becoming someone else. But the truth is that every time you abandon the present to chase a future, you deepen the illusion of waste. You create a gap where none exists. This is why so many people grow restless, even when they appear successful, because deep down, the soul cannot be satisfied with applause. It only longs for truth. And truth, unlike success, cannot be achieved. It can only be seen. When you begin to live with this seeing, your relationship to time begins to change. You stop asking, how much time do I have left? And start realizing that you are time. You are the eternal now, unfolding as this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. Life is not moving through you. You are life moving. The past, then, is not a weight to carry. It is a teacher. The mistakes you think ruined, you were actually sculpting you. The losses you grieve were making space for something new to arise. You thought you were being broken, you were being rearranged. You see, the universe wastes nothing. Not a leaf that falls, not a tear that drops, not a single heartbeat. Everything is used, everything transformed. You are part of that alchemy. So how could you have wasted your life when life itself wastes nothing? Sometimes the path seems meaningless only because you're standing too close to it. Like a painting, its beauty can only be seen when you take a few steps back. You must allow the years to settle, to merge, to reveal their hidden symmetry. Only then do you begin to see the pattern. Only then does the chaos make sense. And as you begin to see that pattern, gratitude quietly replaces regret. You realize that the very moments you despised, the loneliness, the failure, the confusion, were the ones that softened your heart. They broke the shell of who you thought you should be so that something vast and tender could shine through. So, you see, you did not waste your life. You were preparing to live it. And this living has nothing to do with success or legacy. It is about seeing the sacred in the simple, the way water moves, the way your hands age, the way a small kindness lingers long after it's given. These things, though small, are the pulse of eternity. But you must learn to stay with the moment, to stay with yourself, to stay with life even when it offers no grand answers. Because when you stay, you begin to notice that the feeling of emptiness was never emptiness at all, it was spaciousness. It was room for you to finally arrive. Now, some will ask, but what about purpose? Don't we all need one? And yes, in a way, purpose gives us direction, but direction is not the same as destination. Purpose is not something you find, it is something you express through being. The tree does not need a purpose to grow, its growing is its purpose. The bird does not need a reason to sing, its singing is its being, and so it is with you. Perhaps your greatest purpose is not to achieve anything at all, but to embody awareness so fully that life can experience itself through you. That may not sound grand, but it is divine. If you can see that even one day of your life, one seemingly wasted, uneventful, ordinary day was actually filled with this quiet divine presence, then the idea of waste collapses. Because what you were calling wasted time was actually eternity playing dress up as delay. And if you can understand that, not just intellectually, but inwardly, then a great peace will find you. Not the peace of resignation, but the peace of realization, the peace of knowing that you have never been outside of life's embrace. Everything that has ever happened, every failure, every detour, every regret was part of the unfolding of this awareness. It could not have been otherwise. When you truly see that, the ache of "I have wasted my life" begins to dissolve into a quiet smile, because you realize that the story you were mourning was never real to begin with. It was only a dream of who you thought you should have been. And awakening, after all, is nothing more than realizing that the dreamer was never separate from the dream. There comes a moment, often quietly, when you begin to understand that your life does not need to be different in order to be whole. It is a subtle shift, almost imperceptible at first. You stop asking, "What should I be doing?" and instead begin to listen. You start to feel that life, all along, has been whispering to you through everything you once ignored, through failure, through silence, through longing. It was never absent. You were simply too busy trying to edit the story to hear its voice. When this understanding dawns, it's not a flash of enlightenment, but more like the gradual clearing of fog. The trees of your existence, once obscured by regret and expectation, slowly come into view. You begin to see how perfectly imperfect it all was, how each stumble carved a kind of wisdom into your bones, how each disappointment softened your heart, and how even your confusion was guiding you toward clarity. This is the paradox of awakening. You find what you were seeking not by acquiring, but by relinquishing. The meaning you searched for begins to reveal itself when you stop demanding that life prove its worth. You realize that the search itself was never the problem. It was your assumption that meaning was missing that caused the ache. The feeling of having wasted your life was not the truth. It was the veil that covered it. And as that veil begins to fall, a new kind of stillness appears, not the stillness of emptiness, but the stillness of presence. The kind that exists between two heartbeats, in the quiet before you speak, in the way your chest rises without your asking. You notice that life doesn't need your permission to continue. It breathes you, it moves you, it carries you forward, regardless of your stories about it. You see, what most people call awakening is not the gaining of something new, but the gentle loss of what was never real. It's like waking from a long dream in which you spent years trying to find the meaning of the dream itself, only to realize that you were always safe in your bed. The dream was beautiful, tragic, complex, and rich, but it was never separate from the one who dreamt it. So too with life. You were never separate from the totality of it. Even in your loneliest, darkest hours, you were still held by the same intelligence that turns the planets and opens the flowers. You were never outside of that harmony, only asleep to it. To awaken, then, is not to rise above life, but to sink deeper into it, to see the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary, to realize that enlightenment was never a mountaintop, but the ground beneath your feet. You might look back now on all the years you thought were lost, and see that they were not lost at all. They were preparing you to see. They were the soil in which understanding could finally take root. Every regret was compost for wisdom. Every mistake was a seed of awareness waiting for the right season to bloom. And when that season arrives, you begin to move differently. Not because you found some grand new purpose, but because you are no longer fighting the rhythm of existence. Your actions become effortless, not because you've stopped caring, but because you finally trust the unfolding. You realize that your life was never something to manage, it was something to experience. The illusion of waste begins to dissolve because you no longer measure time in achievements, but in presence. You begin to see that 10 minutes of genuine awareness is worth more than 10 years of unconscious striving. When this recognition takes hold, even your past pain begins to glow with a strange light. You see that what once felt unbearable was, in fact, the breaking of the shell around your being. It was how life made space for itself within you. and you begin to thank the very moments that once made you curse your existence. You bow to the storm because you see now that it wasn't against you, it was refining you. And then something even deeper happens. You begin to laugh. Not out of mockery or defiance, but from the sheer relief of seeing how unnecessary all the struggle was. You realize that life had never required your control. It only needed your attention. You had been running through open fields with a blindfold on, searching for the way out, unaware that there were no walls. You may recall the times you prayed for clarity, for purpose, for a sign, and perhaps you now see that those prayers were answered not in words, but in silence. Not through instruction, but through revelation, because clarity does not come from adding more answers. It comes from letting go of all the questions that were never yours to carry. There's an old saying that the truth sets you free, but first it makes you uncomfortable. And that discomfort, that deep unease of not knowing what to do with your life, was the beginning of your freedom. It stripped you of false certainty, of borrowed dreams, of identities that were never truly yours. It left you naked before life itself. And that nakedness, that vulnerability, is the doorway to peace. Because when you stand without pretense, without the armor of who you think you should be, life finally meets you as you are. And that meeting is love. You begin to see that love was never something to find or to deserve. It was the quiet awareness that remained after everything else fell away. It is the gentle hum behind all experience, the soft current that carries every joy and every sorrow. When you touch that current, even briefly, you realize that nothing has ever truly been lost. For how can anything be lost in a universe that recycles itself infinitely? How can a life be wasted when each breath, each tear, each moment of longing becomes part of the great turning? You are not a fragment of the cosmos. You are the cosmos, looking at itself through the eyes of this particular human form. When a person begins to notice what others overlook, there is at first a kind of thrill. It feels like lifting a veil, like peering behind the stage into the machinery of the play. Suddenly, what seems solid and unquestionable is revealed to be shifting, relative, even dreamlike. Yet along with this exhilaration comes a quieter, heavier sensation, the realization that most people do not see and perhaps do not wish to. What you thought would be a shared discovery is instead a private burden. You may try to explain, to put into words, the insight that has dawned on you, but the language falls flat, and those you speak to blink as though you are speaking in riddles. It is as if you are pointing at the moon and they only see your finger. The danger of seeing what others do not is not so much that you are wrong, but that you are alone. Human beings are social creatures, and belonging is as essential as food or air. When the crowd looks one way and you are gazing in another, there is a current of unease. To be the only one who notices the emperor's new clothes is not merely a story about honesty, but about the peril of being out of step with the group. We draw safety from consensus, from the feeling that if everyone agrees, then it must be so. But the moment you glimpse something that contradicts the agreement, you find yourself at odds with the very fabric that holds people together. There is also the danger of arrogance. To see what others do not can feed the subtle belief that you are superior, that your vision grants you a special status. But this quickly becomes its own trap. For the moment you define yourself as the enlightened one, you have merely built a new wall between you and the rest. What began as a discovery dissolves into pride, and pride always isolates. The vision itself may have been clear, but the self that grasps it turns cloudy. In trying to hold on, you lose the very freedom you had glimpsed. Think of a child who suddenly understands a joke before anyone else in the room. They laugh aloud, expecting others to join, but the silence that greets them feels cold. The joy of recognition becomes embarrassment. In that instant, they learn that timing matters, that understanding out of sync with others can sting. Adults feel the same sting, though it wears the clothing of philosophy, religion, or insight. To wake up while others are still dreaming is not always a triumph. It can be profoundly lonely. And yet, what is it that we see when we see differently? Often, it is the fleeting nature of things, the fragility of what others call permanent. We notice that money, power, reputation, all the idols of society are as insubstantial as smoke. We notice that the roles people cling to with such intensity are costumes that will be dropped sooner or later. We notice that beneath the noise of ambition and fear, there is a silence, an openness that does not strive at all. To see this is to see through the game. And once you see through it, you cannot play it with the same seriousness again. But the others continue, earnest and intent, and your laughter sounds to them like madness. This is why so many teachers, poets, and mystics have spoken of exile. Not always a literal banishment, but a subtle one, the sense of not fitting, of being slightly out of tune with the orchestra around you. The music plays, but you hear a dissonance others ignore. And when you point it out, the players insist that everything is fine. You begin to wonder if you are the one out of tune, if the clarity that once felt liberating is instead a form of delusion. The mind wavers between certainty and doubt, and both carry their own weight. But consider that every vision, every new perception in history has always begun with someone who saw differently. The danger of seeing what others do not is real, but it is also the seed of transformation. Still, in the beginning, it feels like standing at the edge of a vast forest while the village insists the world ends at the meadow. You want to describe the trees, the shadows, the depth of the woods, but to them it sounds like fantasy. And so you stand with one foot in the known and one foot in the unknown, belonging fully to neither. This is the tension. To carry in your heart a glimpse of something wider, something truer, while moving among people who are content with their smaller maps. The danger is not only that they will misunderstand you, but that you will begin to misunderstand yourself, to doubt the vision, or to inflate it, or to guard it so fiercely that it becomes brittle. You may try to smother it, to return to ordinary sleep. But the dream of the world never fits again once you have seen beyond it. You may try to proclaim it loudly, but the louder you shout, the less others hear. And so you walk with it quietly, unsure whether it is a blessing or a curse. There is also fear, the kind of fear that whispers, if I let go of what the crowd believes, where will I belong? For belief is not merely a private act. It is the glue of societies, families, friendships. To question it is to risk unraveling bonds that feel necessary for survival. And so, many who see hesitate to admit it, even to themselves. They carry the vision like a secret flame, shielding it from the wind of public opinion, never certain if they're protecting it or themselves. The danger is isolation, the danger is misunderstanding, the danger is pride, but beneath all of these, the deepest danger is that you will forget how to laugh. To take your vision so gravely that you become rigid, cut off not only from others, but from the very life that showed you this glimpse in the first place. This is why many who awaken fall into despair before they find peace. It is the dark night of seeing what others do not. It is not enough to notice the illusion. The greater challenge is to live with that noticing, to carry it gracefully among those who are still entranced. To be in the world but not of it, as some traditions put it, is not a slogan but a daily balancing act. And until that balance is found, the gift of sight can feel like a curse. For to walk in two worlds at once is never comfortable. And yet, what seems at first to be a curse reveals itself, with time, to be the very doorway into freedom. The loneliness of seeing differently is only sharp when you imagine that you must convince others that your vision has to be validated by the crowd to be real. The moment you let go of that demand, the burden softens. For truth is not dependent upon recognition, and awareness does not become less itself because it is unnoticed. The sky does not stop being the sky when clouds cover it, and the ocean does not cease to be the ocean when no ship sails its surface. In the same way, what you have seen remains what it is, whether or not another agrees. The resolution, then, is not to return to sleep, nor to shout at the dreamers, but to walk lightly, to live what you have seen without needing applause. When you understand that the world is play, that life is a dance, you can smile at the earnestness of those still caught in the game without condemning them. You see that their seriousness, their striving and fear are also part of the whole, just as your laughter and insight are. The one who sees is not apart from those who do not see, but an expression of the same reality, taking on a different mask. This changes the flavor of your vision. What was once heavy becomes light. The awareness that isolated you begins to connect you more deeply. For now you recognize that those who do not see are not wrong. They are simply playing another part in the cosmic performance. Without them, there would be no contrast, no stage upon which your own role makes sense. Just as music requires silence, just as light requires shadow, the clarity of sight requires the backdrop of blindness. The difference does not divide, but completes. Think of the flower blooming in a field. It does not demand that the grasses beside it also bloom in the same way. It simply unfolds, radiates, expresses its nature. And in doing so, it contributes to the whole field, not by making others like itself, but by being precisely what it island. So too with the one who sees. The task is not to reform the world into your vision, but to live your vision as naturally as the flower blooms. In that authenticity, you become nourishment for others, whether they realize it or not. And sometimes, without effort, others notice. A word you speak casually, a silence you embody, a lightness in your presence, these become sparks that awaken curiosity. But even if they do not, nothing is lost. The play continues, the dance unfolds, and your part is no less vital because it is unrecognized. The true gift of seeing differently is not superiority, but freedom. You are no longer bound by the unquestioned rules of the game. You may play them if you wish, for the joy of it, but you are not deceived into thinking the outcome is final. You may step back when the game grows tedious, laugh when others are grim, and rest when others are restless. This freedom is subtle, but it changes everything. For when you are no longer driven by the compulsion to prove, you discover a gentleness that can embrace all. Even the danger that once haunted you of being alone, of being misunderstood, becomes part of the comedy. You see that every prophet, every poet, every thinker who glimpsed beyond the ordinary faced the same fate. And yet their words carried through time, not because they fought the blindness of their contemporaries, but because they simply sang their song. And so the invitation is not to fight, but to sing. To let your vision express itself in whatever way it wishes, whether in speech, in silence, in action, or in stillness. In this way, the danger dissolves into play. The one who sees and the one who does not are both the universe in disguise. There is no real separation, no real opposition. What looked like alienation is in fact another face of intimacy. For to be the only one awake in a room of sleepers is still to share the same room, the same night, the same dream. The laughter you carry, though quiet, is still part of the whole sound. And so, you may rest, you may see without clinging, you may walk without boasting, you may love without demanding agreement. The vision you carry is not a weapon, not a burden, not even a possession. It is simply the light by which you move, as natural as breathing, as effortless as being. And in time, you may even forget that you are different, for the difference no longer defines you. You are not the seer against the blind. but the whole itself, playing at many levels of awareness, all equally necessary, all equally divine. And perhaps the most subtle shift of all is this. What once seemed like your private vision begins to reveal itself as nothing personal at all. The sight that you carry is not your possession, not an achievement of the mind, but the universe opening its own eyes through you. In that moment, even the idea of seeing differently softens, for you recognize that all seeing belongs to the same awareness. The distinction between those who see and those who do not becomes less sharp, more playful, like the changing of roles in a play where each actor takes their turn under the spotlight. Consider the ocean again, with its endless waves. Some waves rise high, glistening in the sun, while others barely ripple upon the surface. To the eye, they seem distinct, greater or lesser, bold or quiet. But to the ocean, they are one movement, inseparable. The wave that sees its own crest does not look down upon the trough. It knows both of the same water. So it is with the one who glimpses beyond the usual illusion. Not superior, not apart, but simply aware that all are movements of the same depth. This awareness gives birth to compassion. For when you no longer feel compelled to drag others into your vision, you can love them as they are. The seriousness with which they chase their ambitions, the fears they nurse, the dramas they play out, all of it becomes endearing, as though you were watching children at play. Not condescension, but tenderness, because you recognize yourself in them. You too once played those games in full sincerity, and perhaps you still do, for even the awakened must sometimes forget in order to live. Forgetting is part of remembering, blindness is part of sight, and so you walk more gently, you listen more patiently, you smile more easily. The vision you carry ceases to be a sharp edge dividing you from others, and becomes instead a soft light by which you move among them. You are not required to convince or convert, only to live in such a way that your very being whispers of a freedom beyond striving. That whisper, whether heard or not, belongs to the music of the whole. Notice also how the danger dissolves when you see that what you feared isolation was never truly there. The feeling of being apart arose only when you believed that awareness belonged to you, that you were a solitary flame among darkness. But the flame was never yours. It is the fire of existence itself, and it burns in every heart, whether seen or unseen. You cannot be apart from it, any more than a drop of water can fall outside the sea. The very sense of separation was part of the illusion you were meant to see through. And what then remains? A deep ease, a kind of trust. You do not need to calculate how others will respond, or whether your insight will be accepted. You simply live, and in that living the truth finds its own expression. Sometimes it will flower visibly, sometimes it will lie hidden beneath the soil, but the life of it continues, regardless. You no longer demand outcomes, because you no longer confuse outcomes with reality. Reality is here already, shimmering in each moment, and you are not apart from it. This is why many who see differently eventually become playful again. They laugh more, they sing, they enjoy the simple things. For when the burden of proving and defending falls away, what remains is the joy of being, and that joy is contagious in ways words never are. People may not understand your philosophy, but they feel your presence. They may not follow your reasoning, but they sense your ease, and in time, that ease does more than any argument could. So perhaps the true resolution is not to stand above or apart, but to rejoin the play consciously, to move among others not as a stranger, but as a companion who knows the dream is a dream and still delights in its colors. To take part in the laughter and the tears, not because you are deceived, but because you recognize them as the texture of the whole. In this way, seeing what others do not ceases to be a danger at all. It becomes a gift, not only to you, but to everyone around you, even if they never realize it. And as the words slow and the reflection settles, perhaps you can sense the spaciousness in which all of this unfolds. The danger, the vision, the loneliness, the joy, all of it rising and falling, like breath, like waves, like the endless turning of the earth. To see is simply to notice this movement. To live is to be this movement, and to rest is to allow it all, without resistance, without demand, without fear.
In a very peculiar trap. We are convinced that life is a journey, a pilgrimage, with a serious purpose at the end. And the goal is to get to that end successfully, meaning with a certain sense of virtue, of accomplishment, to have achieved something, to have left our mark. But what if the entire affair is rather more like a piece of music or a dance? The meaning of a symphony is not contained in its final chord. The meaning of the dance is not to get to a particular spot on the floor. The meaning of it all is in the playing itself, in the dancing itself. So the question I'd like to explore with you is this: what happens when we stop taking this musical, dancing, swirling, star-like existence so dreadfully seriously? You know, we have this immense burden. We walk around with a constant low-grade anxiety that we are not doing it right, that we are not living properly. We are forever preparing to live. We think, I must get through school to get a good job. I must get a good job to have a secure life. I must have a secure life to raise a family. I must raise a family so they can get through school to get a good job. It's an endless cycle of purpose, where the purpose is always elsewhere. It's never right here. It's never now. We are like people reading a novel who are only interested in getting to the last page. And so we skim. We turn the pages frantically, missing all the poetry, all the drama, all the lovely descriptions, just to see how it turns out. And then when we get there, we close the book and say, is that all? And the whole point of the book was in the reading, in the living through it. We are missing the show because we are too busy looking for the meaning behind the show. We are like a person at a concert who does not listen to the music, but instead reads the score, checking for mistakes. The music is playing all around him, and he is missing the entire point. This is what happens when life becomes a problem to be solved, rather than a reality to be experienced. We build up this enormous structure of seriousness. We have to have the right credentials. We have to have the right job title. We have to have the right kind of car, the right address. We have to be seen with the right people. It's a colossal act, a performance, and we are terrified that the audience will see through the cracks, that they will see we are just making it up as we go along. And of course we are. Everyone is. The secret that nobody ever admits is that nobody really knows what's going on. We're all just playing roles. The doctor, the lawyer, the businessman, the mother, the father. They are roles, they are games. And games are fun, so long as you don't confuse the game with your fundamental reality. The problem arises when you forget you are playing, when you think you are your role, that you are the mask. Then the game becomes a prison. It becomes serious, and you have to defend it. You have to prove you are a good, serious, upstanding, purposeful person. But what is the alternative to all this seriousness? It seems frightening. If I am not serious, if I don't have a purpose, then what am I? I become a nothing, a washout, a failure in the eyes of the world. But this is where we have a profound misunderstanding. We think the opposite of seriousness is frivolity, shallowness, a kind of irresponsible laughter. But that's not it at all. The true opposite of taking life seriously is to see it as play, to see the universe itself as fundamentally playful. Look at nature. Does it look serious to you? Look at a kitten chasing its tail. Look at waves lapping against the shore. Look at the patterns of migrating birds in the sky. Do they look like they are on a grim mission? Do the clouds look like they are filled with existential dread? No, they are simply playing. They are expressing themselves. The universe is, at heart, a musical phenomenon. It is a dance of energy. And a dance has no destination. It is its own reason for being. We have this idea that everything in nature has a purpose. The bird sings to attract a mate. The flower is bright to attract a bee. The butterfly has eye spots to scare away predators. It's all an engineering project. But this is just us projecting our own purpose-driven anxiety onto the world. Why does the bird really sing? Why does the wave really break on the shore? Why does the star really shine? Is it not perhaps for the same reason a child sings or skips? For the sheer joy of expression, for the fun of it. We say the bird sings for a purpose, to survive. But I must ask, why survive? What is that for? To sing more songs, to have more babies who will sing more songs. You see, it becomes a circular argument. It's like saying the purpose of music is to get to the end of the composition. It misses the point entirely. The Chinese have a wonderful concept, Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting without straining, without forcing. It is the way of water, which wears away the hardest rock by yielding. It does not strive. It simply flows. And in that flowing, it accomplishes everything. And they have another word for this attitude towards nature: purposelessness. Now, to our Western ears, that is a terrible insult. Purposeless? That's useless. That's a waste of time. But to the Chinese mind, it is the highest compliment. They look at nature and see it as purposeless. The mountains just are. The rivers just flow. They aren't going anywhere. They aren't achieving anything. They are simply expressing their own nature. And in that, they are profoundly beautiful, profound and trustworthy. We think trust means believing that nature will always give us what we want, that it will be safe and comfortable. But that's not trust. That is a demand. Real trust is like the trust you have when you throw a ball. You let go of it. You have faith in the process. You don't hold on to the ball and run to the other person and carefully place it in their hand. You throw it, you let it fly. Life requires that same kind of trust. It requires you to let go, to stop trying to hold everything so tightly, to stop trying to control every outcome. If you do not have this trust, if you do not trust nature, and by nature I mean both the world outside you and your own inner nature, what is the alternative? The alternative is what we have created. It is a world of total mistrust. It is a world where we feel nature has got to be watched. It has got to be controlled. We can't trust our own instincts, our own desires, our own emotions. They are too dangerous. They are too messy. So what do? We create authorities to manage it all. We create rules, laws, systems, bureaucracies. We create a world where the most important thing is not the living of life, but the recording of it. It is more important that your files are in order than that you are a kind person. It is more important that the university's records are perfect than that its library is full of inspiring books. We are so busy measuring life that we forget to live it. We become our own jailers. We are so afraid of making a mistake, of looking foolish, of not being serious enough, that we fence ourselves in. We create a life that is, as they say, all jail and no prisoner, a structure with nothing alive inside it. But life is inherently messy. It is inherently playful. It is inherently spontaneous. You cannot schedule a moment of awe. You cannot program a belly laugh. You cannot force a genuine insight. These things happen when you let go. They happen when you stop taking yourself so seriously. A true scholar, in the original sense, is not someone who studies to get a degree. The word scholar means leisure. A scholar was a person of leisure who studied things not because they were useful, but because they were fascinating, because they were delightful. They studied the charming irrelevances of life, the things that do not contribute directly to survival, but that make survival worthwhile. Poetry, art, music, philosophy, the patterns of stars, the shapes of shells, this is play. And if you do not have room in your life for the playful, life is not worth living. But, and this is a very important but, if the only reason you play is because it is good for you, because it helps you work better afterwards, then you are not really playing at all. You are just working in a different form. You must learn to do things that have no purpose. Pick up a pebble. Look at it. Don't try to get a sermon out of it. Don't try to make it mean something. Just enjoy its texture, its color, its shape. Just enjoy it. Do not feel you have to justify the moment by saying it advances your aesthetic understanding. Just enjoy the pebble. When you can do that, you become, strangely, a healthy human being. You become able to be a loving, helpful person. But if you can only do things because you are going to get something out of it, you are what I would call a vulture. You are circling over life, waiting to profit from it, instead of landing and joining the dance. So, the first step is to see the incredible weight of seriousness we carry. To see the structure of purpose we have built around ourselves, like a shell. And to begin to wonder, what if we could set it down? Just for a moment. What if we could, as the Chinese say, learn purposelessness? What would that feel like? It would feel like the moment you stop striving and simply listen to the rain. It would feel like watching wild geese fly and be hidden in the clouds. It would feel like watching a ship vanish behind a distant island. It would feel like wandering on in a great forest with no thought of return. Haven't you ever done that? Haven't you ever just gone for a walk with no particular place to go? You twiddle your thumbs. You hit a stick against a stump. You are in that moment a perfectly rational human being. You have learned the great art of purposelessness. And in that space, life stops being a problem. It becomes a song. And you begin to hear the music that has been playing all along. But this is only the beginning. We have seen the weight. Now we must look at the dancer. We must look at this you that is trying so hard to be serious. What is it? Where did it come from? And is it perhaps also part of the game? So we find ourselves carrying this immense weight. We are playing a role, and we have forgotten that it is a role. We have become convinced that the mask is our true face, that the part we play, the banker, the mother, the student, the failure, the success, is who we are fundamentally. But this you that you take so seriously, this ego, this personality, what is it? Where did it come from? If you look for it, it's rather elusive. It's a collection of memories, a bundle of desires and fears, a certain pattern of behavior. It's a story you tell yourself and others about who you are. I am a person who likes this and dislikes that. I am someone who did this and failed to do that. It is a concept, a thought. And like all thoughts, it is fleeting. It has no solidity. You cannot locate it in the body. Is it in the head? The heart? The brain is an instrument, a fantastic computer, but it is not the operator. The eye cannot see itself. The tooth cannot bite itself. The thinker cannot think itself. This you is a vibration, a pattern, a whirlpool in the stream of life. A whirlpool is a recognizable pattern. You can say, there is the whirlpool, but if you try to grab it, to take it out of the river, you get nothing but a handful of water. The whirlpool is something the river is doing. It is an activity, not a thing. In the same way, what you call me is something the universe is doing, right here and right now. It is a temporary dancing pattern, a gesture, and like a gesture in the air, it is fundamentally empty. It leaves no trace. Now, this can sound frightening. The idea that I am not a solid, enduring thing can feel like annihilation. But is it? Or is it the discovery of your true, vast nature? You are not the whirlpool. You are the whole river. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. We are all actors in this fantastic divine play. And the problem is not that we are acting. The problem is that we are bad actors. We are method actors. We have gotten so absorbed in the part that we've forgotten the curtain will fall. We've forgotten the audience. We've even forgotten that there are other actors on the stage, and we think our role is the only important one. A good actor knows he is acting. He can play the part of a king with tremendous conviction. But when he walks off the stage, he takes off the crown and has a beer. He doesn't go home and order his family about because he was a king on stage. He knows it was a game. The whole of life has a similar nature. It is a drama. It is a play of energy. And when you know that, you can play your part with immense verve, with passion, with compassion, with everything you have. But you won't be deceived. You won't take the tragedies backstage. You won't cling to the triumphs as if they were your permanent identity. You see, when you don't take your ego so seriously, a wonderful thing happens. You begin to relax. The constant low-grade anxiety of having to protect this fragile fictional self begins to dissolve. You can afford to be more spontaneous. You can afford to be foolish. You can afford to make mistakes. Because it's all part of the play. A wave in the ocean is not anxious about crashing on the shore. It's what waves do. It's part of the rhythm. It will gather itself again. In the same way, your successes and failures are just part of the rhythm of your expression. They are not the final judgment on you, because there is no you to be judged in that solid, fixed way. There is only the dancing, the flowing. This is why the Chinese sages praised purposelessness. They saw that nature is not going anywhere. It is just expressing itself. A tree does not purpose to grow. It grows because it is a tree. A bird does not purpose to sing. It sings because it is a bird. We are the same. Our purpose is not some distant goal. Our purpose is to express what we are right now. And what are we? We are the universe. We are nature. We are that same energy that blows out the stars, that shapes the galaxies, that curls the waves. You are not a stranger in a foreign universe. You are this universe, and it is you. So, how do you live this? How do you stop taking the mask so seriously? You don't do anything. That's the great joke. You cannot try to be spontaneous. You cannot make an effort to be effortless. That is like trying to bite your own teeth. Or like a person hearing a funny joke and then stopping to think, I must laugh now to show I understand. The real laugh comes from nowhere. It happens to you. When this realization dawns, life ceases to be a problem. It becomes a game, a very serious game, sometimes. A tragic game, sometimes. But a game nonetheless, and you can play a serious game without taking it seriously. A good chess player is utterly absorbed in the game. He cares deeply, but he does not think. The fate of the universe rests on whether he wins or loses. He knows it's chess, so you can go about your life. You can do your job, raise your family, pay your bills, but you do it with a lightness. You do it as an expression, not as a means of validation. You work not because you have to prove you are a worthy person, but because the work is there to be done, like a mountain is there to be climbed. This is what is called working for the work's sake, singing for the song's sake. It is action without attachment. You pour yourself completely into the moment, and then you let it go. You don't cling to the result. A cat does not pursue a mouse because it has a philosophy of predation. It does it because it is a cat. It is totally absorbed in the pursuit. It is a perfect expression of cattiness. And when the moment is over, it is over. The cat stretches and goes to sleep. It doesn't lie awake wondering if it was a good cat or if it could have caught the mouse more efficiently. It is simply itself. We can learn from that. We can learn to be simply ourselves. Not the idea of ourselves, but the living, breathing, immediate reality of ourselves. When you are no longer defending a fragile self-image, you become incredibly strong. Criticism doesn't shatter you. Failure doesn't define you. Success doesn't inflate you. You can flow with circumstances. You can adapt. You can be like water, which is soft and yielding, yet which can eventually wear away the hardest rock. This is not passivity. This is supreme intelligence. It is action that is in accord with the total situation, not just with your narrow, selfish desire. It is the action of the whole universe expressing itself through you. So you see, the answer to the burden of seriousness is not to become frivolous. It is to become playful, To see the cosmos as it is, a joyous, spontaneous, and yes, sometimes painful dance. And to see yourself not as a lonely dancer, but as the dance itself. But the dance has a rhythm. It has a certain pattern. And to understand that pattern is to understand the deepest joke of all. Now, having seen the weight of our self-constructed seriousness, and having glimpsed the illusion of the separate solitary ego, we are left with a question. Not a question to be answered, but an invitation. An invitation to participate. What is left when you are not busy building a monument to yourself? What remains when the constant narration in your head, the commentary, the judgment, the planning begins to quiet down? What remains is the experience itself. The raw, unfiltered isness of things. The feeling of the wind on your skin, the sound of a distant bird, the coolness of water. This is not a trivial reality. This is the fundamental reality. The world is not something you have to figure out. It is something to be tasted, touched, heard, and seen. You are not a passenger in the universe, being taken for a ride. You are the universe, experiencing itself. The eyes you look out of are not your personal possession. They are the eyes of life itself, looking out at its own creation. The energy that animates your body is the same energy that spins the galaxies. This is not a mystical fantasy. This is the most practical thing in the world. When you know this, not just as an idea, but as a feeling in your bones, your relationship with everything changes. You begin to see that life is not a journey with a destination. It is a musical thing. You are here to sing, to dance, to play. But we have been taught that playing is frivolous, that it is only for children. But I ask you, what is the alternative? All work and no play does not just make Jack a dull boy. It makes him a nervous wreck. It makes him a tyrant. It makes him a machine. The alternative is to join the dance. To understand that your very existence is your justification. You do not need permission to be. You do not need to earn the right to be here. You are here because you are here, just as a rose is red because it is a rose. So how does one live this way? You don't try. Trying is the energy of the separate ego, the energy of seriousness. You simply begin to notice. You notice the moments when you are already not trying. The moment you are captivated by a piece of music and forget yourself. The moment you are so absorbed in a conversation that time stops. The moment you are walking in nature and your endless internal chatter simply ceases. In those moments, you are there. You are fully present. And in that presence, there is no problem. There is only the dance. The goal is not to make those moments happen. The goal is to notice that they are always available, because the dance is always happening. Your very breathing is part of it. Your heartbeat is the drum beat. This is the great liberation. To understand that you are already free. You are already what you are seeking. You are not going to become happy, peaceful, or enlightened at some future date. You can only be those things now. Any effort to become something is a rejection of what you already are, which is the energy of the cosmos. This does not mean you become passive. Quite the opposite. When you are not wasting energy defending an idea of yourself, you have immense energy available for life. You can act with tremendous efficiency and compassion, because your action is not about you. It is about the situation itself. It is the universe responding to itself. You become like the Zen archer, who does not shoot the arrow. It shoots. There is no arrogant archer separate from the bow, the arrow, and the target. There is only the one event, the shooting. This is action without strain. This is wu-wei. And so the call to action is not a call to do something new. It is a call to see something you have been overlooking. It is a call to trust. To trust yourself. To trust your own nature. And the nature of which you are a part. Yes, this is a risk. Life will sometimes let you down with a wallop. But the alternative, the life of total mistrust, of control, of constant surveillance of yourself and the world, that is not a life at all. That is a prison of your own making. The call is to let go. to join the dance that has been going on for billions of years, to sing the song that is already singing itself through you. You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. You are under no obligation to be serious. You are under no obligation to justify your existence. Your only obligation, if there is one, is to be true to the deepest truth of your being, that you are a unique, irreplaceable, and temporary expression of the whole universe. And the universe is not serious. It is playful. It is joyful. It is a great cosmic game of hide and seek, where it is both the hider and the seeker. So, go on, play, experiment, be foolish, be magnificent, fail gloriously, succeed lightly, love, lose, feel it all. But whatever you do, don't miss the show by being too busy looking for the meaning behind it. The meaning is in the music. The meaning is in the dance. And you are the music. You are the dance.
There is an old saying that the truth will set you free, but before it frees you, it makes you heavy. The truthful man, wherever you find him, seems to walk under a weight invisible to others. He may not complain, he may not cry out, but there is a gravity in his presence, a solemnity in his eyes, as though he carries something no one else can quite understand. And indeed, he does. For the truthful man carries the heaviest burden of all, the refusal to live in illusion. Most people find it easier to live with masks. We present faces to one another, polished, rehearsed, agreeable. A father plays the role of the strong provider, even when he trembles inside. A friend nods along to things he does not believe, only to avoid the awkward silence of disagreement. A lover says, "I will always be here," even while knowing deep down that nothing lasts forever. These masks are lies, of course, but they are lies we accept because they protect us from discomfort. They let us belong, they let us be liked, but the truthful man cannot wear them for long. He may try, for he is human after all, but something in him revolts. He feels the itch of dishonesty like a splinter in the mind. He senses the falseness of the role and cannot rest until it is removed. And so, one by one, he lays aside the masks. At first, this feels noble, liberating. He thinks, now I can finally be real. But he soon discovers that the world does not reward reality. The world punishes it. Imagine a dinner table where everyone is speaking politely about things they do not care about: politics, the weather, the price of bread. And into that circle steps the truthful man. He cannot force his tongue to move along with their games. He does not condemn them. He simply falls silent. But his silence exposes the emptiness of the conversation, and suddenly the others are uneasy. His presence becomes a mirror they would rather avoid. This is why the truthful man carries a burden. Not because truth itself is a curse, but because it alienates him from the crowd. The world is built upon a delicate agreement. We will not disturb each other's illusions. And the truthful man, by his very nature, breaks that pact. He carries the heaviest burden because he cannot lie to himself. He cannot convince himself that wealth is happiness when he sees rich men weeping in their mansions. He cannot pretend that success is security when he knows that every victory ends in death. He cannot swallow the belief that belonging is found in imitation when his soul cries out that imitation is the death of individuality. Others can, others do. They dance to the music of the marketplace. They march to the rhythm of society's drum. They drown themselves in noise to avoid hearing the silence of truth. But the truthful man cannot. His ears are tuned to a deeper sound. And once you hear that sound, you cannot unhear it. Now, you may think, surely this man is free, for he sees what others cannot. And yes, there is freedom in truth. But freedom is not always light. Sometimes freedom is heavier than chains. Think of a prisoner released after many years. He steps into the open air, and for a moment he rejoices, but soon he trembles. For freedom requires choices, responsibility, risk. He cannot hide behind the walls any longer. He must stand on his own. So it is with truth. The liar hides behind illusion. The truthful man stands naked before reality. And reality is vast, uncertain, often merciless. This is why truth is not celebrated by the many. They prefer the comfortable shelter of lies. It is why prophets are stoned, why philosophers are ridiculed, why the honest man is mocked as naive or dangerous. His refusal to join the masquerade unsettles the dancers. And so, his freedom becomes his weight. The truthful man carries another burden too, the burden of clarity. To see things as they are means to also see the suffering that others ignore. When a man numbs himself with distractions, he can walk past the beggar in the street without a second thought. When he tells himself, "It's not my problem," he feels no sting of conscience. But the truthful man cannot turn away so easily. He sees the hunger in the beggar's eyes as if it were his own. He feels the trembling of the earth under the weight of human greed. He senses the loneliness hidden behind laughter, the despair tucked behind smiles, and all of it presses upon him. This is not to say he wallows in misery, no, but he is awake to pain. And awakening to pain means carrying it, even when it is not yours. It is like standing on a mountain where you see the whole valley. Beautiful, yes, but also terrible. You see not only the flowers, but also the graves, not only the rivers, but also the blood that stains them. To see clearly is both a gift and a wound. And so the truthful man appears heavier than others. He is not entertained by empty distractions, for he sees through them. He is not intoxicated by shallow praise, for he knows how quickly it fades. He is not comforted by hollow promises, for he knows they cannot be kept. Instead, he carries the silence of honesty, the loneliness of authenticity, the sorrow of seeing through illusions. Others dance lightly because they believe the dance is real. The truthful man walks heavily because he knows it is only a play. And when the play no longer convinces you, even laughter becomes heavy in your mouth. But here lies the paradox. The burden of truth, though heavy, is the only burden worth carrying. For what do the others carry? They carry the burden of lies, though they do not admit it. They must remember their falsehoods, repair their broken disguises, run from their own reflections. Their burden is confusion. The truthful man's burden is clarity. And though clarity weighs him down, it also steadies him. He may stumble under its heaviness, but he does not fall into the abyss of delusion. He may feel alone, but he is not lost. He may feel heavy, but he is real. And reality, though harsh, is the only ground upon which a man can truly stand. So the truthful man carries the heaviest burden, not because life is cruel, not because he is cursed, but because he refuses the cheap comfort of illusion. He would rather suffer under the weight of truth than rest lightly upon the pillow of lies. And perhaps this is the greatest paradox of all. Though he seems burdened, though he seems lonely, though he seems weary, the truthful man, in his heaviness, is more free than the light-footed dancers of illusion. For when the dance ends, when the music fades, when the masks fall away, it is only the truthful man who will still be standing, burdened but unbroken, heavy but whole. To live truthfully is to walk without armor. And that is why the truthful man appears fragile, even weak. While others surround themselves with shields of pretense, I am strong, I am in control, I am important, he steps forward bare, unwilling to clothe himself in what he knows to be false. At first glance, this seems foolish. How can a man without armor survive in a world that worships appearances? How can the unprotected endure in a society that mistakes masks for strength? Yet here is the paradox. His lack of armor is precisely his strength. For what happens when the storm comes? What happens when the illusions crack? The man who wears false armor is shattered along with it. The truthful man, having never depended on illusions, stands firm. The burden of truth is heavy because it does not allow shortcuts. The liar can flatter to be liked, boast to be admired, pretend to be wise. He can win friends with deceit, gain power with manipulation, and soothe his conscience with distraction. The truthful man has none of these luxuries. He must take the long road, the slow road, the honest road. He must earn respect, not demand it. He must accept solitude when his honesty unsettles others. He must face consequences when his refusal to lie exposes what others would prefer to hide. This is why his steps are heavy. Every footfall is weighed with reality. And yet, this heaviness is not defeat, it is integrity. The truthful man walks with burden, yes, but each burden carried honestly strengthens his soul. To carry truth is also to carry solitude. You see, lies create crowds. They give us slogans to chant together, masks to wear together, illusions to share. Whole societies are built upon mutually agreed pretenses. And within them, people feel united, not because they are truly connected, but because they are collectively deceived. But the truthful man cannot join this unity. He cannot nod along when his heart says no. He cannot pretend to belong when he knows the price of belonging is the death of his authenticity. And so, he walks apart. He becomes the man at the edge of the room, the one whose silence disturbs the noise, the one who no longer laughs at empty jokes. He feels the sting of being misunderstood, the ache of being excluded, the chill of being alone. This is his burden. But it is also his refinement. For solitude, when embraced truthfully, is not emptiness but fullness. The man who is left alone with his honesty begins to hear what the crowd cannot. He hears the song of the wind, the wisdom of silence, the quiet companionship of the stars. In losing the applause of the many, he gains the intimacy of the real. The truthful man carries the heaviest burden because he is called to suffer without escape. The liar suffers too, of course, but he hides his suffering beneath distractions. He runs into the arms of entertainment, drowns himself in noise, loses himself in ambition. He refuses to look at his pain directly, and so he carries it in secret, disguised even from himself. But the truthful man has no such escape. He feels pain and admits it. He faces fear and names it. He confronts despair without the drug of denial. And so his suffering is heavier but also cleaner. Like a fire that burns hot and pure, his suffering refines him. It teaches him what matters. It strips away what is unnecessary. It forges in him a strength that cannot be faked, for it is carved directly from the stone of reality. This is why the truthful man, though heavy, is free. The liar may laugh loudly, but inside he trembles. The crowd may cheer together, but each member fears solitude. The pretender may shine for a season, but he is always running from the shadow he casts. The truthful man, however, has nothing to fear. His life may be heavy, but it is steady. His road may be lonely, but it is real. His heart may ache, but it is whole. And this wholeness, this integrity, gives him a strength that no applause, no praise, no illusion can provide. The burden of truth also transforms the way he sees others. At first, honesty isolates him, but in time, he discovers that his burden is not only his own. Everyone, in their quiet moments, senses the weight of reality. Everyone knows, somewhere deep inside, that their masks are fragile, that their illusions will one day fail. The truthful man becomes a kind of silent witness to this hidden awareness in others. He no longer despises them for their lies. He understands. He sees that their dishonesty is not cruelty, but fear. They fear what he has already accepted, the raw, unpolished face of reality. And so his burden, though heavy, ripens into compassion. He does not join their illusions, but neither does he condemn them. He carries his truth with dignity, and in doing so, he becomes a light for those who are ready to step into honesty themselves. The heaviest burden becomes the deepest gift. For in the end, what the truthful man carries is not merely his own honesty, but the possibility of honesty for everyone. By refusing to bow to illusion, he shows that it can be done. By bearing the cost of authenticity, he proves that the cost is survivable. By walking alone, he clears a path that others may one day follow, and though he may never be thanked, though his road may never be crowded, he leaves behind a trail of footprints that point toward reality. So yes, the truthful man carries the heaviest burden, but it is a burden worth carrying, for while it bends his back, it straightens his spirit. While it isolates him from the crowd, it connects him to the cosmos. While it removes his illusions, it reveals the eternal presence behind them. And when all the masks fall away, when all the pretenses collapse, when all the illusions dissolve, it will not be the liar who stands free. It will be the man who carried the burden of truth all along.